Let's start at the beginning.
Well, I was a student at Trinity on an Erasmus year, and I did my first, I think actually my first production at Players upstairs, which was then brought down to the Samuel Beckett Theatre. So this is the second show I've done, which is about a 7-year gap between the two. And I approached Trinity about being artist in residence here as a way to create work in situ, on set, over the rehearsal 4-week process. So it was a combination of good support, getting Arts Council funding, and finding the right space and for the availability of the theatre space. It's with their support really that this has happened.
Where can I go now? Home to my father? I betrayed him and my country by sailing off with you.
I just thought, how am I going to make the work that I really want to make under the conditions I really want to make it in? And I just kind of really thought about it and felt that this was the right theatre to approach, and I was a graduate of Trinity, so it kind of made sense. I'm a big fan of Samuel Beckett, so to be working in the Samuel Beckett Theatre on something like this, like on something like Medea, is it makes you feel very enriched as an artist. It's a very beautiful place to rehearse. It beats many rehearsal rooms somewhere else outside the city centre. But no, it's beautiful, and the weather's been great while we've been rehearsing Medea, so no, it's been lovely. And you kind of feel, I always feel when I come to Trinity, into the campus, you feel much more cleverer than you actually are, you know, which helps.
I could almost understand all this lust if you were childless. But we have 2 beautiful sons. What do you believe in?
To try and make the ancient and the modern sort of meet is really challenging, and I think that's the real challenge. The way we've set it in the house with the 4 chambers, domestic chambers, and then this kind of quite much more ancient staircase space with the metal walls, was something that myself and the designer Paul Amani spoke in great length about, trying to find, and also the translation by Robin Robertson, trying to find a version that really does meet the ancient with the modern. It's monstrous, and it's epic, and you do gulp. I mean, when I first started, I never quite realised, even though the whole concept I had was to stage it in a house, I never quite realised the impact of having 5 different spaces to be directing on. So you've got 5 different stages, and you've got 5 different plays, in a way. So you're sort of creating, devising, and working with the text and the sound and the music and the lights all at the same time, which has been really fabulously kind of inspiring and all that, but it's also exhausting when you've got all this information coming at you. And the filmic language, I was really kind of interested in sort of pursuing that, which also obviously also helped in the staging of it.
Forget them now, and weep for them after. Even if they are killed, they once were loved. Unlike me, unlucky woman that I am.
From an artist's point of view, having to deal with that for the last 6 weeks has been pretty immense, and having to grieve that out of your system in a way when you're having to deal with it. And I always set a challenge for myself that when we had come to the killing of the kids, that scene in rehearsals, I thought if I can get through that, we'll be fine. And so we did it very technically to begin with, and obviously then we started to add emotion and blood and all the rest of the other things you need to have to make the scene work. But it still is very shocking for me, and I know people's responses who I've been meeting outside the theatre, I think they've been kind of heartbroken by it and deeply moved, and I think because it's cutting life off at a very young age, and hopefully I've done it in a way that is very sensitive as well and not so voyeuristic. It's nice to be back, and I think I love the Samuel Beckett Theatre. I think it's a really interesting, versatile space.